Welcome back to the Mama Genius Hub podcast. I'm so excited. I got Dr. Carroll here today, and she's going to help us dive into how do we look at food a little bit differently. And because she specializes as a board certified pediatrician, a diplomate in obesity, why am I tongue tied today? Medicine and life as a weight coach. And of course, she is also a mom. So we're going to get that perspective as well, coming from both directions, because sometimes it's hard to get that. So welcome, Dr. Carroll. It's so exciting to have you on today.
Thanks, Michelle. And you can just call me Sheila. It's fine. Thank you.
I like to be formal. I'm just kidding. I'm never formal.
Whichever you
No, I don't even know where that came from. I was just like Dr. Carroll, and I'm normally like very laid back. Kind of funny. But we were just talking right before we got on here how we were just like, this is the mom life. Like, we're all like, we're just going to go for it. This is the way we do it. And I think that's really what it comes down to is when we're trying to do these things as moms, it's like when we're like trying to do it perfectly, it's never going to happen. And like, we're just like, just dive right in. I love that about you because I was like, I'm the same way. I'm like, wherever we go, we're going to go. So tell us a little bit about yourself and your why for wanting to do all this.
Sure. Well, I am a pediatrician. I've been a pediatrician for about 23 years. And a couple years ago, I also got certified in obesity medicine. I have a real strong interest and passion in trying to help kids be as healthy as possible. And why? So they can just live their lives, be kids, and like the dream of their child, like the goal of their childhood is to find out who they really are and kind of just let that bloom. And when you're a kid who's struggling with extra weight or health problems, or other mental health issues, sometimes it's hard. It takes up so much of your space and energy. It's hard to just just be a kid when you're have these other things. So I'm a person who struggled with her weight her whole life, since I was 10 years old. And I know firsthand it took up so much of my mental energy and my childhood, really, my teenage years, my young adulthood. And now that I'm where I'm at in my life, 55, and the past few decades of working closely with families, I know there's a better way for kids. I know that we parents, that we moms especially, we can help our kids. We are the ones who frankly really have to help our kids because our medical system is messed up is one way to put it.
Well, coming from a doctor who's been studying for 23 years, I mean, you should be the cornerstone of knowing what that's all about. And I love that you like said our whole goal is to figure out what the kids' desires are and who they are.
Yeah.
That's what the Mama Genius Hub is all about. Find the genius in yourselves and then inspiring that in your kids to discover that. But you're
Yeah.
right, the weight. Tell me a little bit about your experience as a kid, though, in terms of the mental. You were talking a little bit about the mental clutter that the weight caused on you, and like give us a little bit more in depth on that because I mean, as a parent who like may not have a weight problem, but their kid does, they might not necessarily know how deeply that impacts them.
Yeah, I grew up in the 70s. I was a child in the 70s and 80s. I graduated from high school in the mid 80s. And I was one of five kids, and you know, a couple of my brother and sisters did not have weight problems, even though we kind of ate the same foods. But I did, and I suspect I ate probably more than them, in retrospect. But I felt so badly about myself. I thought, back then it was kind of like, oh, my doctor told my mom, you just got to get her to stop eating. And that felt horrible. And so I took it as a personal flaw, like something's wrong with me. And I really internalized that. And I was just I was different than the other kids. I always felt slightly different than the other kids. And being teased, it feels so bad. It makes you feel so badly about yourself. And as a kid, it's just, you don't have the prefrontal cortex developed yet to be able to really fully understand oh, it's not really who I am, how much I weigh and what I look like is completely separate, frankly, from who I really am inside of me. So
Oh,
honestly, I think I didn't really spend time trying to even figure out who I was inside of me. That just honestly, it wasn't a thing. I think it wasn't a thing back then. And it was just going through your day to day. But it it for sure affected so many decisions in my life, my weight and what I was willing to try, and um, just feeling bad. I think lots of times feeling bad about myself. And then if someone would make fun of you, or like sometimes, you wouldn't get asked, I didn't get asked to the prom, and kind of just pretending it didn't matter. No one would talk about it. And like, okay, well, just, okay, that didn't, you know what I mean? Like that didn't happen. So there's no acknowledgement of that, just that pain that was, it was
just like
hard.
pushing away, trying to.
Yeah, yeah, and we didn't talk about it as a family, or as my parents. I'm sure they would have tried to help me, but that wasn't the message back then. It was kind of just eat less. It was that whole, reduce your calories, eat less and move more, which we know obviously does not is not good advice.
So then what was the turning point for you?
Well, the turning point, the permanent turning point came for me when I haphazardly bumped into life coaching, many years ago, a few years ago. And I learned all of these skills and tools that I didn't have. Uh, I knew what I really, actually, to be quite honest, I didn't even really 100% know what I should be doing, because us medical people tell people to eat less and move more. I mean, I was telling my patients that, and frankly, it wasn't working for me. But I guess I thought there was just something wrong with me, and it'll work for you. But it was ludicrous now that I look back.
Well, you're
So
making sorry, 1 second. You're making me think about BMI, and I forget what year, but it's like the 60s or something, of like, or whenever that idea came out. But like, what does it even measure? How does it even help you these days? And yet that's what we still use.
yeah, I think, yes, in defense of BMI, like it's just a marker. It's like it's a it's a it is a message or a symbol of it's your height, it's a calculation of your height and your weight. But you're right, it doesn't measure your muscle tissue, doesn't measure, what we really want is, when we're talking about people being quote overweight, we want to know body composition, and we want people to have really good musculature, really good skeletal muscle, and a quote healthy amount of body fat, adipose tissue, which is different in every person, frankly. And it really depends, like, where you store fat. um, there's visceral fat versus like subcutaneous fat, so there's lots of different kinds of fat, actually. And so, yeah, so and then that's completely separate from like how you look and the size of your clothes and that kind of thing. So I lost the thread of all.
I turned you off a little bit, turned you sideways a little bit. So I'm going to bring you right back, because we were getting to your turning point of what helped you
Oh,
see life
thanks. Yeah,
coaching and
thank you.
everything. And then so I got sidetracked by the BMI, because as these ideas, as you were saying, about all the health, like,
Yeah.
what do we actually do? But like, let's get to your turning point and then go that direction.
Well, it's so funny because we think like, oh, if you're a healthy BMI, you must be healthy. But we know now that that's absolutely not true. And so by extension of that, we were like, oh, if you're an unhealthy BMI, PS, you're unhealthy. And so we know that's not true. So what we're really talking about is health at the cellular level. We want our cells to be as healthy as possible. And so um, that's it doesn't really matter weight so much to me. Weight is kind of a marker, but if if your cells are doing really well with how they're handling the food or the energy that's coming in and the messaging between all the cells, if all that's going great, you're a healthy person. You're going to feel good in your brain and your body. And that's what we want. That's what we want for all of these kids. But what I was going to say is through life coaching, which I bumped into this random, I always blame it because I'm up here in Maine and things kind of come up here late. But I came across this life coaching. She's a doctor, actually, which helped me believe in her credibility. And actually, I think she's based where you are in Milwaukee. Katrina Ubel, who's Dr. Ubel. She's a pediatrician who turned life coach, and she has a wonderful podcast called Weight Loss for Doctors Only. You don't have to be a doctor to listen to it, but it's so I stumbled across that, and she recommends reading this book called The Obesity Code by Dr. Jason Fung, who's a nephrologist, a kidney specialist. And he was the first person that I read that said that weight is hormonal and weight management can be manipulated by the type of foods you eat because of the insulin response they create and the timing of what you eat. So it wasn't a calories in, calories out model. It's called the carbohydrate insulin theory of obesity or theory of weight management. And it turns out it's like kind of like a combination of a bunch of different factors why people become overweight in the first place or struggle with their weight, even down to like the environment that you happen to live in. We know that air pollution adds to overweight. So if you happen to be a person who lives near a freeway or a highway, you are breathing in some pollutants that are triggering some hormonal changes that are predisposing your body to store weight. And it's so complicated. It's so fascinating, but the science is so fascinating, and it's still being worked out from amongst all of these geniuses in their labs. But so through life coaching, I learned to choose different foods, and I started eating foods without added sugar. That doesn't mean fruit, because fruit has natural sugar, and but food, like if I looked at a label and it said 6 grams of added sugar, or even I tried to avoid all added sugar. I avoided all added sugar and flours, anything that had flour in it, I stopped eating. And I was able to lose 45 pounds and have been, I know, and easily, and at the same time, so that's good advice, right? Oh, okay, just don't eat flour and sugar. If you could do that by yourself, like, okay, that's pretty powerful. But I needed the help, which the life coaching, which is the coaching part, offered, which was, okay, so if this is what I really want, how do I actually get myself to do that? And to do that, you have to look back at the thoughts and feelings that you're having that are driving your actions. And so those two things together for me were frankly freeing, because then I was like, oh, I can weigh what I want to weigh finally. And I can do it in a way that's good for me, because I get to decide what I'm going to eat. I get to choose whether I want to eat something or not. I can eat whatever I want. I'm a grown up, right? I can do whatever I want. I just have to understand that if I make that choice, then I'm living with the downstream side effects of that. So yeah, the life coaching to me was really, I feel so grateful that I happened upon that. It was so great.
The words that just keep sparking my head are like comfort food, like the way that we look at things. And I think the mindset is so key to any kind of transformation change that you want, as you said, because I actually similarly lost 45 pounds doing a program called 75 Hard, though. But again, it was because the mindset was combined with it. And I just decided this is what I'm finally going to do, because I wanted that change. And like you're saying, you're right. You can't do it until you add that component, because it's so easy to say, oh, I'm just going to go flat and give up all these things, until unless you're doing something to add that onto it in terms of the mentality of why you're doing it. Is that correct?
Right. Yeah. Well, first you need a really strong why. Like, why am I doing this? And then you need something sustainable because, like Whole 30. I've never done that, but the Whole 30 would be great if it just was like whole for the rest of your life. It's the 30. That's what these diets are. They fail because we haven't actually internalized the habit change. We haven't internalized a new way of eating or a new way of living, exercise and movement and sleep and stress management. So if we don't figure all of those things out, we eventually, kind of drift back to our old ways. And I think was also just so powerful for me was understanding why I was eating like that in the first place. Understanding, even though have been a doctor for so long now, we never talk about how we evolved as humans. And our species evolved, we evolved to really love sweet things. They have kept us safe in nature. There's nothing harmful that's sweet in nature. Babies are born loving sweet things. It's one thing that drives them to, mother's milk. And so it's normal for all of us to want to eat sweet things. What's abnormal now, and started being abnormal when I was a kid, is our food supply. The fact that our food supply has so much added sugar in it, in foods that most parents or most people don't even realize have added sugars. They don't taste sweet. But because we know that the sugar, there's so many different kinds of sugar, but fructose, which is it's a isomer of glucose. It's a different form of sugar. We know that sugar is addictive to our brains. We like it as humans. And what that does is it triggers some messaging in our brain is, oh, you just ate that? Oh, that tasted good. Oh, you should have more of that. Go back, go get more, get more. And so that's kept us alive evolutionarily for these periods of time where we went through no food, but we're not in that period anymore. Now we're 24/7, food with high sugar content, high fat content. And so we need to understand. I think it's super helpful for parents when they can really understand why their child really wants the sweet thing or the pancakes or the cookie or the whatever. It's not because something's wrong with them. It's just that their little brain, is offering them, oh, that tastes good. That's what you should eat, and then kids refuse, quote, healthy food, vegetables. They're just not as sweet. And so why would they eat that? Some kids are able to eat those, but some kids just kind of refuse because they're so used to the sweeter foods that are that big food, or whoever you want to call, all of the corporations that are just making money are putting out there. They're not for our health. I say that to my son all the time. Just because we can buy something in the grocery store doesn't mean it's safe for us to eat. And and why are they selling this in the first place? They're trying to make money. So
well, I think looking at the aspect of the money, and also I want to circle back a little bit because you were talking about the habits. And I think that's key, especially for parents, because a lot of times we like get into these habits of certain routines of what we make for our kids. Like, for instance, I realized part of my weight, like when I didn't realize how much weight I had gained or things, it was because I had the habit of like having a bagel for breakfast, or just the habit of these things because they were easy. And I just didn't think beyond those aspects versus like now I'll have like a smoothie or a vegetable omelet for lunch or something like that. Like, but made those now a habit versus the other. And so I kind of want to tell back on that and how we can ingrain that in our kids.
The best way to ingrain that in your kids is for you to be that way, to be the model that your kid is watching every day. And you don't have to be perfect, like we talked about earlier. Perfection it just stops everyone in their tracks. Well, if I can't do it perfectly, I'm not going to do it, But what we're really going for is better than I am, a little bit better than today, tomorrow will be a little bit better. But that we can't expect our kids to eat healthy foods if we're not eating healthy foods. We can't expect our kids to not use their phones or their devices if we're constantly modeling that behavior for them. It's just the same. It's sleep, and the emotional regulation skills. This is so powerful too for parents to learn for themselves, number one, but also if you could raise a child who is never an emotional eater, just doesn't understands food and understands their body, and maybe sometimes once in a while uses food to kind of like self-soothe, or take the edge off or whatever, fine, but doesn't do it on a habitual basis, not even knowing what they're doing. So all of those skills, that's why I left medicine and started my coaching business. I only coach the parents. I'm a pediatrician, and yes, I'm still helping the kids. I feel so strongly to keep doing that, but I know the best way to help them is to help their parents.
Well, I completely agree. That's why this is Mama Genius Hub, because it's finding the genius in yourself first, because if you're not the role model for the kids. So, but let's take this into a little bit practical. Where with a mom, well, I have 3 kids, so let's say with 3 kids, what is like, they have the 3 kids, not they're fighting with food and stuff. What is like a number one step for them just to get started down a new path that you would
for the kids to get started down a new path?
For the mom, I mean, wherever you want to start with it, just like what would be a first step for this mom to take, either for herself, for the kids?
Yeah. So what I think is so powerful and kind of life changing, first of all, we could leave the kids out of it and just work with the mom. So, and say, for example, teach the mom or have the mom experience a period of time, 30 days, whatever you pick, no flour, no sugar, kind of just like a minimally processed food diet, get off the foods with the added sugars, and kind of, I use the term reset to factory settings, kind of just like get your hunger hormones balanced, so to speak, and just kind of eat food that we were designed to eat, not food that's designed to stay on a supermarket shelf. And then when you do that, you feel, the mom, or the parent feels so good, then they're 100 times more willing to deal with the pushback that we're invariably going to get when the kids are like, what's happening? Why am I, what's going on with these eggs when I used to be getting, Pop-Tarts or something. So, but I feel my experience has been when the parents are able to make the change for themselves, at least for a little while, because frankly, once you make the change, you can't unsee and you can't unknow what you know. So when even if you quote slip back or start eating processed foods or start eating sugar again, you've already experienced a better way. You know a better way. Your body knows a better way. It's going to be up here in your brain. And so I recommend parents go first and you make the changes before you try to make any changes for your child. That's my recommendation.
Well, I have to completely agree with that, just in terms of my own journey. And once I start doing it, then the kids naturally start looking at labels. They did on their own. My son even just loves to cook, and he's like the health nut now. He'll want to make if he makes banana bread, he'll like, I got the sugar-free banana bread.
Yeah.
And he's also now starting his own little microgreen business.
Oh wow, good for him.
Microgreens growing in his bedroom right now.
That's so great. Wow.
But it is the concept of once you, that's why I want to do what I did with the Mama Genius Hub, is because find the genius and the things inside of you, they start seeing that. And then when you start paying attention to what you like, then you can see a little bit differently as they start picking up what they like. They kind of like feed that seed off of you. And so now he's like this little cooker, and like, and the process of all that. Granted, like you said, it is like the give and take with the stuff that they still do want to eat and stuff, but it's not all the time. And you can tell even when we go on road trips and stuff, and we have to eat a lot more like food, just because of the nature of what we're doing. They're like, I'm ready to go home and have a home cooked meal.
Wow, that's a major win. That is awesome. Yeah, good for you.
I think
And
what
teaching them to cook is such a wonderful life skill. What a gift you're giving them. It's awesome.
I have to say it came more from my husband than me. I mean, I have helped a lot, but like he inspired it. And I think it was actually Scouts when he was in first grade. They had him flip pancakes at the like he had to do a whole bunch of it. And after that, he just like wanted to be in the kitchen more. And so I
Oh,
think
wow.
just opening up the experience of it. So now he's the gardener and chef that I am not.
Yeah, well, that's lucky. Yeah. Yeah, the more, my experience has been that kids want to be healthy. They really do. And and they're doing the best that they can, and we can really help them. And they are on this long journey, this like long runway to take off where they go, go to college or live on their own or whatever. But if we can help prepare them from a knowledge base, start them off like with what we think we know right now as the best way to stay healthy. If we can offer them that and offer them some of the tools and skills so that they can learn kind of the implementation, how to like we said before, like how to do what you say you want to do, like how do you complete that circle. I mean, imagine like when your kid learns that, all of the things they'll be able to do in their life, not just food related, but or health related, but like life related.
Well, I always use a saying for them. The sooner you start the good habits, the less you'll have to break later, like me.
Yes.
Myself as an example, I'm trying to break
Yeah.
these habits I've been doing for years, trying to ingrain better habits in you guys that work for you, that you will then be able to take with you, and you won't have to unlearn things that I had to.
Yeah, and yeah, I feel the exact same way and, use all of that time that you could be spending as a child doing your other things, pursuing your interests, finding out who you really are, then you'll have to delay that and wait until uh, down the line when let's just help them right now.
Exactly. Well, so any final like steps or things you'd want to give moms just to again get started a little bit, or final things before we go into our 5 questions?
Um, well, just hope. I think so many parents feel overwhelmed by the mountain that it appears to be to climb to beat to the mountain of processed foods or the mountain of kid food, and how do I even start, and sometimes that feels so overwhelming people don't do anything. So I think my first message would be choose something small, that you can do. And maybe it starts with education. Look around, listen to other podcasts like this. You know, what are the dangers of sugary drinks for my kid, or juice for my kid, or soda for my kid? And so just maybe some education, and just also it's never too late. I had a mom the other day say, well, I think her son is 6. He's 6. I just wish I had started this when he was 2, you know. And so I said, it sure, would be in the perfect world, we're starting this prenatally because we know moms before they're even pregnant are, having some changes that affect the baby. Um, but it's never too late. So small things matter. Don't give up, and it's just a long road. And like we said, perfection is not definitely not the goal. Just progress.
And I know we have a freebie for the audience, but we'll do that right after we get to our 5 questions. So we'll start with those. So share your favorite book or research that has had a significant impact on your journey as a mom.
Okay, I looked up the authors because I think this book is so awesome. It's a parenting book, so I didn't read it until maybe 5 years or so ago. It's called The Self-Driven Child by William Stixrud and Ned Johnson. They have a follow-up book called What Do You Say? But by far and away the best parenting book I have ever read, helps me show up as the parent I want to be, to do the things that we're talking about. It talks about intrinsic motivation, and helping foster your child's autonomy, and how to parent in those ways so that your child owns their own life. That's what they mean by self-driven child. It's kind of, when I first heard the title, I was kind of like, what is that? I don't know if I want a driven child. It sounds kind of intense and angry, but what they mean is they're driving their own car, I think is what they really mean by that title. And so how can we parent in ways that support our kids' autonomy? And so great book, great guy, funny guys. If you don't want to read the book, you can Google them, and they give lots of lectures to parents and things like that. So that's my tip.
I love that so much, because it is, especially as we're talking about this and the autonomy of choosing their own foods and things. I think that's so great.
Yeah.
Number 2 leads us to, what special family tradition or ritual brings joy to your household and encourages connection?
I asked my son about this morning, because in anticipation of this meeting with you, and he said, "Well, we do have the tradition of unpacking our nutcrackers." So it's just a simple one, but we, at Christmas we have, decorating our house, or in a family, tradition that he really enjoys it. For me, I could honestly go without the tradition, the decorating and stuff, but I do it because it does mean something to him, and it's a comfort thing for him, and he enjoys it, even though he refuses to help me do any of the decorating.
I love that so much, but you're making me think, since like the holidays seem like a lot of times that's something holiday related, and so like it's interesting when I get one that's not holiday related, but it's just something to think about. Like, it's like a lot of times these traditions always come up with the holidays, and so I'm like, what other kind of ones we can do. But I love that idea of the nutcracker, and that you're only doing it because it inspires them. I think that's sometimes what we do, is see the things that bring joy in them and keep them going as well. I agree. I've done quite a few of those with my kids, which leads us to number 3. So again, I'm opening that conversation again, because a lot of times we say, how are you? And we get that answer, I'm busy, or I'm fine. And then that's kind of like the end of the conversation. We seem to then also define ourselves by that busyness. Like, I'm only able to answer this if I can say all the things that I'm doing. So I wonder if you have a different approach of how we can either ask the question of someone else, or how we can respond differently, or any way you want to take that question.
Sure. When I saw this question, I immediately thought of my dad, who's 91 now. And, for as long as I can remember, anytime you ask him, how are you doing? He's like, I'm great. And even if things aren't quite so great, but what I like about that, he's not like, if something wasn't so great, he would say, but what I like about that, he is looking at the positive aspect of things, and there are some really great things all the time, so I've started doing that myself, even if it's more serious, obviously, than I'll say, but I think it's just a message to ourselves, like, oh, actually I am great, I have this going on and this going on, and it's a little crazy and whatever, but I'm great overall.
Well, the word "because" kept ringing through my head as you were saying this. So it's like, I'm great because, and then like, just like the good things that are going on. Because I love that like, start with the things that like feel good to you. I love that as a way. So I was like, I want to just throw out, like, for those listening, that we could also add the word "because" to that as well, and to really start that conversation. Because again, the purpose of this is also to get deeper conversations with those around us, instead of just that superficial and that need we have for connection that seems lost sometimes in those superficial conversations. So these are just tips and small ways of how we can do that. And that's why I put that question there. Number 4. Oh,
well, the only thing I was going to quickly add is, when I used to think about, because I've thought about this question before, and the whole busy, I'm so busy. When I like just took ownership of what I'm choosing to do, because everything I'm doing as a grown-up, as an adult, I'm choosing to do it. Oh, I'm choosing to be on the PTO. I'm choosing to, coach my son's basketball team. I'm choosing to help my parents, all of these things. If I'm choosing it, then I don't really feel like I can complain about it maybe saying I'm busy isn't a complaint, but for me, when I use the phrase, I'm choosing to do this, or I've chosen to do this, I don't feel busy. I feel like, oh, I'm doing it because I want to do it. And
I love that. So I'm choosing to do this week instead.
Yeah.
I love that. Number 4 for you, again, takes us back to describe what genius means to you, and then how do you feel when you're in your genius zone?
Um, Genius, I think we've kind of talked about it already today, but genius to me is like being willing to try something, be on that search for what you really like, who you really are. And then when you find that, or when something feels good, as something feels connected to you, like that's when you feel like you're kind of in your zone of genius. What do you like doing, even if it might be hard or seem like work, if and even if some outside person might judge it as not genius level or perfection or whatever, to me, like if you're pursuing what you're interested in, trying to find your authentic self, like that's a genius life for sure.
Oh, I love that. And that leads us to number 5, which is how do you encourage your child or children to explore new skills or passion and live in their genius, which we've touched a little bit on, but I love to hear what you have to say on that one.
Yeah. Well, my approach to that is I can't possibly know what is best for him. For I have a 12-year-old son, and so I take that approach, meaning like yeah, of course I have advice for him, and of course I keep him safe, but I don't really know. I don't know that he should be a doctor or he should be a lawyer or what is. When I was hiring a nanny, when I worked in the hospital and I had to hire a nanny because I worked overnight shifts, and she asked me, he was a baby, like a couple weeks old. She asked me, well, what's your parenting style? And I said, well, I don't have a parenting style yet because I need to figure out what his personality is and his needs are. And I'm going to bend my personality. I'm going to bend my parenting style to kind of maximize or support his personality and his, you know, persona as best I can. So I think we can maximize our kids in that same way, like support them with all the things, but allow them the opportunity to try things and fail. And that's okay. Try something. Oh, I don't like it. Okay, next. Just who are you? And let's help them figure that out. And then they'll figure that out much earlier than in their 4th or 5th decade. They can figure it out in their 20s and 30s. So.
Well, you got my curiosity peak because now I got to know, did you hire that nanny?
I think I did hire that one. Oh my gosh, hiring a nanny is the absolute worst. It's like talk about stress. But yeah, she just, people just, I think she asked me that because she wanted the job, number one, but also she wanted to know how I wanted her to act, obviously.
Right, yeah.
And so what basically my message was, I want you to respond to my son in ways that will support him.
I love that. And I think that that's what it comes down to is a lot of times we might predetermine or just not even realize we've already predetermined things for our kids, but kind of trying to, as much as we realize it, to try to let that go to see where their desires and their ideas guide them, but giving them the opportunities to figure that out is how I see it.
Me too. And a lot of what we think, a lot of it is fear-based parenting too. Like we become fearful for their future or they're this or they're that if they seem to be maybe veering slightly off track or what we didn't expect. And so it's managing our own emotions and staying calm. And I think in this book, The Self-Driven Child, they call it being a non-anxious presence in your child's life. And it's just lovely. It's what a gift to give your kid.
Well, speaking of gifts, why don't you tell us about the gift you have for our audience?
Oh, well, I created a free download. It's called How to Make Parenting Around Food Feel Less Hard. And it's just a strategy. It's a framework that describes feeding kids, and it can be any age kids, and it breaks it down between the parents' jobs and the kids' jobs and in feeding. And so, I think when parents know their jobs and stick to their jobs, then they can feel good about themselves and allow the child to stick to their own jobs. So yeah.
I love that for you so much. It's in the description of this, as well as I just put it in the comments. So you have 2 places to find that link for everyone, and it'll be in the show notes for the podcast itself. I want to thank you so much, Sheila, for coming on today and sharing with us. And if you have any final words you want to share with the audience.
Thanks for having me, Michelle. No, this is a great discussion. And I think us moms are so powerful and we can really just help our kids. And it's empowering and freeing and so fulfilling, like, too. It feels so good.
Well, thank you so much for tuning in to the Mama Genius Hub podcast. I swear I am tongue-tied. I didn't think I said this, but I traveled all day yesterday, 2 canceled flights, made it into Chicago instead of Milwaukee, and had my husband had to come drive 2 hours to pick me up. So it's been one of those days, but like Sheila and I were saying, we're just going to push through and we're going to do this mom thing and we're going to keep moving forward. And that's what this is all about. And we'll see you on the next episode. Bye, everyone.